Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for, I almost said Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger, for Kamen Rider Revice episode 17, I believe it was. And much like with Zenkaiger this week, we had kind of a monumental week. This isn't historic like the stuff with Zenkaiger. That makes it, that way overhypes it. Like, it was a historic moment, but a boring episode. The point is, it was a big episode because we had another form debut. And coincidentally, that's really my only big complaint about it. Like, this episode overall had some really good stuff in it. And I didn't even mind the form stuff, but I just wish it wasn't happening so soon. That's really my only major complaint about this episode, is I hate how soon this is happening. But I'll get into a rant bowl about that later. Basically, in this episode, we do kind of tie that story to the general story going on, because Ikki's motivation is he comes to the professor and he's like, I really want to free these level 3 deadmans, how can we make this happen? And he's like, oh, what a quinky dink. Bandai just sent us this, and we need this new device to be debuted for Toys R Us. And so in order to use this though, you have to do this virtual reality training. You can use the form, because basically Revi and Vice have to be extra in sync because they're like at full remix power, so they have to be in sync to use this form. And they go into this virtual reality simulation and they fight like themselves in suit, which was kind of cool. And I will say, again, putting a pin in it for a minute, my thoughts on the too soon debut. I do like that there was a story given to this suit, both in terms of there being kind of this cool training sequence for it, and I like that it tied into a story beat for Ikki's character. I think they did that well with Barid Rex, and then now with this. It had a story reason. It wasn't just here. Like, at least there was a story reason that made sense for the character, and I did like that stuff. And it coincidentally was kind of tying into some of the stuff going on with the Deadmans, because this episode also focused on a new type being introduced, as well as Julio's backstory, because you have this guy who comes to the shop, and Majin Buu's there, and he's like, oh, I need help here, because I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With my best friend, and then I sent him to the Shadow Realm, and he was totes pissed. That's exactly how it went down. Basically, he used to be friends with Julio, and they played like a fake Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game together, and he betrayed me, and then Julio was like, everybody betrayed me, I fed up with this world, and that's when he met Christina Aguilera, and that's when they teamed up. And we get that backstory, and then that also kind of explains why he was so upset that she got betrayed, because it reminded him of being betrayed, which was nice. I did like that. I liked the way they tied that together, and his backstory enhanced his loyalty to her. It felt like kind of a, not a funny backstory because it was kind of sad, but it just felt kind of like a more filler character backstory, if that makes any sense. Maybe it was just me, like just the way it was presented, it just reminded me of a filler backstory where it's kind of like a sad tale, but it's kind of cartoony. I really do like what they're doing with the villains. I feel that we know them and their motivations a lot more clearer than early on in Saber, and now that we have these different factions going on, it makes that all the more interesting. And then you have Alteca or Teco guy, he's making a new type of dead man that basically completely absorbs the human, like it just almost sacrifices them, speaking of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it just turns it into a demon. Like, it just uses it effectively, uses the human to create the demon. This ties into the plot with Ikki wanting to save everyone, because then he shows up at the fight, and after the monster's destroyed, it's destroyed, because like the human was already sacrificed. There's no human in there to save. It just basically is already sacrificed as human to make this soulless monster. And I like the way that thematically tied in. With this whole episode, Ikki was like driven to, I have to save everyone. I want to save these higher level demons. We didn't get to save the other guy, the shapeshifter guy. I want to save everyone. But then now all of a sudden there's this new type of deadmans that once you're fighting them, the fight to save them is already over. And I thought that was really thematically interesting. And then of course we get the debut of the form, the Volcano Vice Stamp form, which gives him like fire powers and then Vice ice powers, because this time he actually gets a form. It's a pretty good looking form. It's not up there with my favorites, but I think it's overall a good looking form. I really do like the fire and ice sort of, Jon Snow and Daenerys element they got going there. I'm just kidding, but you know what I mean. Were they fire and ice? It's been a minute since I've watched that. Because, like, yeah, because she's a dragon and she's fire and he's ice. And anyway, this isn't about Game of Thrones. I liked the form. I liked the debut. They did the cool eye glowy finisher and stuff. I like the concept of it. I will just say that, again, I'm just annoyed at how soon it debuted. Like, they've been doing this thing in recent years where you get the super form and then you get super form 1.0, like 1A. And it just makes the last form feel so insignificant. And I really hate that. It's just really funny, like, as I've been watching Rider, the longer I've got into it, the more they keep adding main forms. Like, it used to be just a main form and then a final form with, like, the ability forms in between. And then it was main and mid-season and final. And then it was main and super and mid-season. And now it's like main, super, super A, super B, super C, mid-season, super... It's like just too many forms. It's just, I hate how close that they debut, like I said, because it makes the last one feel insignificant. And it takes kind of the excitement out of it. And Toku's main priority, unfortunately, is selling toys. And obviously what they're doing is working for them. So, you know, they're not going to change it. But I wish they spaced it out a little bit more. Toku has so many episodes, I would say too many episodes for me even, that I feel they could afford to space this out to make the last form seem more valuable and more exciting. I think that's probably why they tie the gimmicks together so that you have to plug the two devices together, because otherwise, like if I was a kid or even now, I'm like less excited about the Barid Rex stamp and getting it because I like the form, because now all of a sudden it's tossed to the side. So like that's why they tie them together. Like, well, Barid Rex is useless now, but you still need the Vice stamp to make the sounds. I'll say that it's not overall impacting my enjoyment of the narrative, but it does take me out of it a little bit. And I think it frustrates me just because I think that with some tweaks and just spacing things out a little bit, it'd be such an easy fix. And it just kind of bothers me because it's the only thing taking me out of it. But other than that, I really like this episode. I like the backstory for Julio. I like the new type of Dead Man's and how it tied into thematically to Iki's journey. I like that even though it was too soon, there was a story behind this power-up in terms of Iki's character. I'm still going to give it a 4. I just really wish... Again, this is something that's never going to happen because it's clearly working for them. But that would maybe be one of my top 3 wishes for Rider as a franchise, is for them to just really calibrate their toy releases and the show narrative. Because just with some minor tweaks, they could really balance it nicely so that it doesn't impact the narrative so much. But what did you guys think of the episode and the new form debut? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.